transaction, where a token can represent a security or a bond or a loyalty point or whatever other of the million use cases that exist. The blockchain is going to be something that can decentralize all those types of services that I said to you before, and create a world where it is possible to have a service like Uber or a service like Facebook to exist, where we don't need a hub that is now going to be monetizing that information and being able to build up that service and build up that platform. If you just think about how Steem works, now Steem, to me, the reason I only discovered Steem a few weeks ago, but immediately I could see how you could create a platform where the contributors to that platform can benefit financially directly from the people that are actually using that service. So instead of us, if we were thinking about Uber, paying Uber some kind of commission to upkeep that system, we could directly pay the people who are contributing to that system, not just in a content way, which is how Steemit works, but actually the developers of the platform. And then we could be able to actually do away with these hubs, these central services that provide value to customers. Now, obviously there's been a lot of hype around blockchain, and almost exactly a year ago this article came out on The Economist, and the whole world's sort of gone crazy now for this blockchain thing, where there's these crazy statements from World Economic Forum saying that blockchain is going to be the beating heart of finance, Goldman Sachs saying it's going to change everything. Everybody's now jumping on this blockchain bandwagon, and I think a lot of it is justified, but not in the ways that we think. In fact, Gartner has a hype cycle, it's a technology hype cycle, and this could easily, if you just look at that .com crash, this is exactly what the NASDAQ looked like. There's usually, when a new technology comes along, a technology trigger where everybody hears about it, and then suddenly everyone just piles in thinking this is the next big thing, and it's going to do all these wonderful things for us, and we better get in now, we better buy stock. If you think about cryptocurrencies, these altcoins, whenever a new altcoin comes out, just today or yesterday there was a new one, you can just see the same picture always happens. There's this huge pump up, this hype, and then what happens is there's this kind of reality sets in, and there's this crash into this trough of disillusionment. Now, Gartner actually has put blockchain onto this hype cycle, and it's put it about over there. And I actually agree with them. I think there's going to be this kind of time in the near future where all this investment that is going into blockchain, with all these banks and all these businesses and all these new types of ways of using blockchain, I think they're going to realize that, okay, hang on, a blockchain isn't good for everything. It's not going to be the silver bullet. And in fact, I think one of the most important things about a blockchain, if not the most important thing, is this idea of decentralization, where we can create services where we don't need somebody to manage it for us. If you've heard of the term a private blockchain, that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. And blockchain is being co-opted by private organizations, even organizations like banks who now have competing banks that they have to have relationships with. They still are creating these private blockchains, and I think this is where the crash is going to happen. Everyone's going to realize blockchain is not good at being privatized and controlled. It's the same as an intranet. Okay, sure, you can have an intranet and it might be useful within your organization, but it makes no sense in a broader sense. If you're exploring blockchain and all the opportunities in blockchain, keep this in mind. Keep in mind that this is going to impact the world wherever you can imagine a service that is given to us, like a social network or an Uber, or even an Amazon Web Services, or an Amazon.com. Those types of services are the ones that are going to be changed completely. I think the disruption that is coming is going to shock all of us in this room, even if we think we're all open-minded. The existing business models that exist today are truly at risk. Every one of those giant organizations that were in those silos are all potentially going to be disrupted. I told you about Uber. There's a company called Arcade City that has already done this. They have now created a platform where you can now connect directly to your driver. The software is open source, and you can now connect with your driver and pay that driver directly. So why do you need Uber in this situation? There's Storage or Storage A. What they're doing is they are if you use Dropbox or Google Drive, the way this works is that all of you, if you know how Airbnb works, all of you have unused capacity on your machines, on your laptops, on your servers. So what these guys do is they say, okay, we're going to connect all these little bits of storage that everyone has, excess capacity, and we're going to bring it together, and you, as a customer, can now go and store your files on all these millions of different computers around the world. And what makes that possible is that you can now pay those people who are providing you that service. So this is going to be, I think, of all the services, and I do think everything that you use today that you think is here forever is going to change. I think one day Google Drive is going to go away. I think Dropbox is going to go away. Uber is going to go away. There's a company called MadeSafe, and what they're doing is they're saying, okay, cool, we can make this global network where you can host websites and you can have email servers. So if you use email, if you use Gmail, we're not going to need Gmail in the future. All these things are not made possible by networks, but made possible by blockchain, where you can now make payments to these, micropayments specifically to these services. And then Open Bazaar, if you've heard of Open Bazaar, a very cool project where you can now list your products for sale, and then you can directly connect with your customers. And then obviously finally Steemit, and I really do like the idea of Steemit. Obviously it is new, and Ned was open about that. He said, listen, it's still young, it's still growing, and I totally appreciate that. I'm a software engineer, and I know what happens when I build software. You put it out there and it breaks, and then everyone, and you got to fix it, and then and as users come along, it hardens and it gets better, and eventually, it's great. But the point behind something like Steemit is that here we have another service, and now we can disrupt Facebook or any of these other kinds of services where people are giving their content to these organizations and they are monetizing it. Now we can, in a decentralized way, monetize our own value instead of having somebody else monetize it for us. So I'm very philosophically aligned with every one of these services, and I'm very pleased to be here at Steemit, where I'm supporting the idea, and I hope that Steemit does grow, and because this to me is the future. And what we're seeing here today is kind of like the internet in the 90s, where we saw Netscape, how terrible it was, and we were on our 14K modems. This is the time where we're in right now. But these are going to grow and evolve and change and fill our lives till one day the idea of having something like Facebook that has all our data, or Gmail that has all our email, is going to be this ridiculous notion, that we actually gave all our content away. Okay, but now the whole point of this conversation was crowdfunding. So I just wanted to get into this.